Tracy, how are you doing this beautiful day?
I'm doing great, Wulwyn. How are you?
I am excellent on this sixth day of November, EP19, November 6th, less than 8 weeks, Tracy.
Yeah, and it's a it's interesting. It's an interesting time here in the States because as you know, we are wrapping up our presidential election stuff, and so there's a lot of shifts
Oh
and changes
yeah.
and different attitudes and thoughts and everything about that, as well
Oh
as
yeah.
being in the last final stretch of the year and looking
Oof.
ahead. So it does, the first thing that came to mind this morning for me is, I was
Uh-huh.
thinking last night, I'm like, no matter which way this election goes, it's
Uh,
really a great opportunity. I mean, this is, again, we're talking here in the States, but I think this expands to all of us across the globe is, you know, things are, there's the external forces, there's the things that are going on around us. And
mhm.
as they say, what creates our reality is not so much what's in our reality as much as how we respond to it.
Mm, mm,
And it's a great opportunity to remember that, is to say, regardless of, because we can get so hijacked by whether we like or don't like, what's
mm,
going on in our environment, that we start to then, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm so depressed, or oh, I'm so excited, and we can let that emotion
mm,
drive, right? Or we can
mm.
say, this is a data point. How do I want to work that into the integrity that is me, right? That how do I want to show up? How do I want to respond in the sense of
Mm,
what is going to be most proactive and productive for building what I want to build in my life? And not
mm.
just that, being who I want to be,
Ooh-wee.
right?
Sister,
Yeah. So I wanted to open with that
sister.
because I felt like it was really important for a lot of reasons. Um, because again, we can be so reminded by just how much we react. And then we wonder why we're getting certain results or we're feeling a certain way that then's taking us down and affecting, or pulling us up, and affecting our decisions. Like, is it the emotion? And this is where I think the distinction between being
Mm,
emotional and connecting with emotional points of data,
mm.
right? Being emotional is that the emotion leads. Being aware of what the emotional data is telling us is
Mm.
where we get to lead. We use it as a
Yeah,
data point.
yeah, yeah.
So I'd love to know
So
your thoughts.
I'm coming to that. How are you? I
I'm
don't think that
well.
I
I actually,
guess so.
I'm reminded oftentimes when I tell my clients, I fall into the same bucket as my clients. I think, at least I consider myself to be a visionary type, and we I don't know how else to say it. We do well in chaos.
Mm,
We're built for it.
mm,
Now, it doesn't mean our
gotcha.
human doesn't get stressed or we can get, pulled into same, but I think that what I find is, and I'm seeing it in a lot of my clients for various
Mm,
reasons, right? The economy has been hard on a lot of people's businesses. There's just a lot going on, and it's putting pressure on people in a variety of different ways. And what I tend to see, and I have for over a decade, is when things, when the going gets tough, as they say, the visionaries get going.
mm,
Um,
gotcha.
that squeeze of challenge tends to bring out the best in them
Mm, 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 mm.
if they allow it, right? If they allow it, and it's true of all of us. But I just, I've seen a lot of that recently, and then I find it the same with myself. Is that when you've got, like, when you can kind of, everything's just going well, and you could just, like, glide through, and you really don't have to do much, and it just is kind of, all falls in place. That's one experience. But when you really have to be mindful of what comes out of your mouth, where you put your energy, where you put your money investments, where you spend your time, and with whom, when that becomes more core, and
Mm,
every little bit of all of those things matters,
mm.
that becomes a new level of self direction. Um, so so yeah, it's
And
just a great reminder.
and that should be the normal.
Yeah.
But we should always know what we're saying, be conscious of it, always know where you're putting your money, track most things or everything, right? For I woke up this morning and I just I know a couple of people who would just spend the next 4 years on both sides, grinning or frowning. I mean, just say, I
Fighting,
mean, just
fighting
be
it, or
the sour puss in the room the entire 4 years, right? Or the happiest person, and then as soon as another election occurs, they go, "Oh, man, it's the opposite, flip flopping. We just had the same thing here in Liberia, had elections, and I think this was last year, and it was a change in party, change in government. I told Verlin, I said, this is just like the NBA Finals. Don't get me wrong. I'm not equating this. I'm not saying to listeners or you, this is not important by comparing it to the NBA Finals. But what I'm saying is, you get over the next day, the euphoria, the adrenaline's flow, and you're like, or you frown and, oh, we lost, and the next day the sun comes up, the birds chirp, and you get hungry. Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown of the Boston Celtics are still drinking some champagne, and they get independent soon, etc. But you have to now go back to work and do what you have to do, what you've been doing every single day. Right? Strangely, you said something, and this is, I love eavesdrop. You said, when these things occur, the tough want to go and get stuff, the visionaries or people get going. Last week, Traci, I don't know what I was doing. I think there were multiple things, multiple obstacles, land issue. Uh, I assisted my cousin in selling a vehicle. He's in the States, sent a truck here to sell, assisted him in selling it. The salesman who did it, has been dodging me or saying excellent things for a year. Uh, we bought a property somewhere. It was a resale of a sale. We're in court. I have people in court for that. And I was saying to myself, oh my goodness, I can't stand all of these balls that are in the air. And I'm going to myself, I'm so angry. I can get on a plane and leave here. And then it's like, why did you come here? God told me to come here. Oh, really? So are you going to get up and leave? Or is this a conversation you're going to have with your spirit and say, is it because it's kind of tough right now and you're trying to leave? And then I started to pray. And when I prayed, for those out there, so, oh, you were praying. Yes, I prayed. But here's the thing. I'm going to put a segue here for a second, Traci. Uh, I'm I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. Pray to God. Yes, Jesus is my high priest. But I'm not stuck praying and not working. It's not faith without works, right? It's not just no. So
God
I
help me.
prayed. Yeah, God, no, he's not. And this is we are getting there. This thing that I'm going to, it's getting to that particular point where you said the tough gets going. So I said, I'm praying, and the Holy Spirit says, go and read about the Red Sea. What about the Red Sea? I don't want to read no Red Sea. Go and read the Red Sea story. And I go in to read the Red Sea. And he says, whilst he's sending me to read it, he says, all of these things are for my glory. I go, okay. So I go into the Red Sea story. I think it's Exodus 8 or so. Go and read it. I open it, and the first paragraph, it's, I'm going to take you and walk you down to the Red Sea, and then you will turn around and come back, and then you will go in the middle, and I want you to camp there. It's going to seem to Pharaoh that you are confused and lost. That's how I want him to think. When you go and circle there and stop, he's going to come there and say, I'm going to capture them. All of this is going to be for my glory. So for those who, are following Christ, and the way I frame mine is, I'm going through this for things that I don't put myself in, things that occur around me. My reaction, my thought process with my Father, all things work on me for His glory. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to get sick. The sickness is for my glory, for His glory. No, no. But all of these obstacles, the Red Sea is standing there, a huge obstacle. It's standing there, Traci. And the people say, oh, hold up. You mean there weren't a lot of graves in Egypt? You want to bring us here to die? Come on, man. Don't. And they're sitting, and God says, Moses, what are you crying for? What are you waiting for? Go ahead and raise your staff. He says, I thought I was waiting for you. No, no, dude, it's in your hand. Figure out, go. And he raises it. And come to find out, it framed my entire mindset, Traci. I was like, I think I wrote something on Facebook about this. You know what? I'm grateful for obstacles. Because when obstacles and hindrances come up, I can speak and I'm capable. I have things in my hands. I have things in my mind. I have the wisdom to look at it and say, huh, I'm going to overcome this. And guess what? Do you know that after I had this conversation and reading with myself, Traci, as I engaged in the day, I started to speak forth what I wanted to happen. Now, this isn't magic. This is not abracadabra. No, I'm framing my world.
You're
Because it's
aligning.
what
You're
it's my
aligning.
word.
Yeah.
I'm framing my word, my world, and as you say, aligning. I'm framing my mindset in what must occur, what I'm expecting, my expectancy. So how does it tie in with what you said just now? See how you said when the going gets stuff, things occur. Whichever side of the aisle you're on, please, please don't get stuck in the mud, because 4 years go by so quickly. Now, listen to what I'm saying. I'm not saying this 4 years because I'm framing the elections. Time goes by so fast when you're sitting and moping. The things that you're supposed to do and grow yourself, it will pass you so quickly that when you turn, you will go and say, gosh, if we're framing in elections, I'm 4 years older. Oh my goodness. And what have you done in that 4 years?
Yeah. Well, so if to make it succinct for people who may not follow God, or let me put it into a more general framework, is that the glory of God is you. You say, do it for my glory. When we hear Him say, do it for me, we are His glory, right? We need to know, Moses needed to know that he had the power, right? How do we know what's within us that has been bestowed upon us if we're not put to the test of practicing that? If we're constantly waiting for the world to come and save us, God to come and save us, our boss to come and save us, our husband or wife to come and save us, our kids to come and save us, somebody else to come and make it better for us. The president we choose to be in the presidency, right? That makes us feel like we're saved. We're missing the invitation, right? To save ourselves, if we want to look at it that way. Saving ourselves means growing ourselves, challenging through challenge, through seeing what we're capable of, through testing the limitations that we have on ourselves and others. Right? Do we think collectively? I mean, I heard people are like, "Oh yeah, we're all going to go to hell in a handbasket now that Trump is elected," and I'm like, don't put me in that handbasket.
I'm not going in that handbasket.
I'm not. That's not my reality. I'm not going there within that handbasket, right? I'm in a different one, and if that's the one you choose, go for it. But don't say we're all going, right, because we're all not choosing. Again, some of us are choosing to align our mindset with the direction of result that we choose. We want a glorious result. We choose a glorious mindset. If you choose a victim mindset, you can't get a glorious result. It's just not going to happen. Because if one person finally comes and saves you, you're going to have expectation on something else that's going to let you down. Right? So for every time maybe somebody comes along and saves you in the way you want, you're going to have 10 more people or circumstances that aren't. So we're going to spend more time being frustrated. And to your point, 4 years are going to go by, 5 years, 20 years, 40 years. And you're wondering what you did with your life. And your interpretation of your life is as a victim, right? And I don't mean always in the extreme case. You view your life based on how reality shaped you instead of how you chose to shape your reality. And that's being the victim, right? Is that you're like, well, my life was great because all these things made it great, or my life was terrible because all these things. Nothing makes it so. How you choose to interpret it and what you choose to do with it is what makes it so. And that's, I think, what we're saying, that hopefully, I really hope people get this message if they need it, because this is those critical points. And I always say to leaders, catch yourself when you're in a pattern that you've identified isn't working for you. Because unless you can catch yourself, you're just going to keep, it's unconscious. So you're just going to keep feeding that pattern and wondering why you're not getting a different result. So these moments where people, like, this is a perfect moment, elections are big things that influence our lives. This is that moment. How are you choosing? And it can be a positive thing too. Like, don't get too excited about, oh yeah, now Trump is going to go save us. Right. So if you're happy about this, it can be the same way as if you're not happy about this. Right. It's just like, oh, I can sit back now and relax because my guy got in office, kind of thing, and he's going to go take it for task. Whatever, this is really a moment of saying, what do you do when these things happen? When you have a huge moment, ooh, wow, that was a close one. Or, oh my gosh, we're going down. What do you do in these moments?
Yeah.
This is the key. It's not even about the good or the bad. It's about the moment and what you choose to do with it. Because I have seen so many things on social media today. What's really funny? I have my social media planned out. I wasn't even thinking about the election when I was putting my daily stuff together. I spend very little time. Don't get me wrong, people. It's not like I don't pay attention to what's going on, and I don't pay attention to the policies and all that. What I'm saying is I don't pay attention to a lot of what other people are choosing to do with the information. And so I went to go post on LinkedIn this morning, and of course, I'm looking at the post that I chose for today, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you can't make this stuff up. It's all about paying attention as a leader, right, to the reset. How can you look at the patterns you've been operating under and look at what's been working, look at what hasn't been working, and based on what hasn't been working, how can you reset? And, most of what we're seeing right now posted is a personal opinion, unfortunately, right? I don't personally think that's the place. I'm not saying your personal opinion can't have a place in social media.
No, it does.
Because it does. But when it's just spouting, oh my God, or oh yay, we're finally safe, it's really not helpful. It's really not helpful. Just so you know, spouting your opinion is not helpful. Framing it in such a way that invites other people to a space that you might want to invite them to, right? This isn't about controlling. This is about invitation. Right? What are you inviting people when you're posting certain things? What do you think you're inviting people to? And are you being exclusive? Which means, is it only going to resonate with certain people? That's exclusivity. You're being exclusive. You're only inviting the people that agree with you. And if other people come along and have something averse to say about that, you want to kick them out, or you give them a hard time, or everybody jumps on top of them and attacks. That's being exclusive. Is that what you want to be? If that's what you're posting, right? If that's what you're sharing, I'm not saying don't share, I'm saying think about the impact and what you're inviting people to in that share, right? What are you inviting them to? Are you inviting them to get more angry? Are you inviting them to share their opinion, and are you open to it? What are you inviting people to when you post things? If we start to think about it as an invitation as opposed to just vomiting whatever all over the place, good or bad, right? Like I'm just angry or I'm just excited or I'm just, look how great my kid is or whatever. What are we inviting people to? Do we want them to celebrate with us? And is it being posted that way? Right? Am I putting these things up because, or am I just, trying to get attention or trying to get likes or trying to get, again, what does that mean? What does that invitation mean? That I need to be validated by the outside world, right? It's inviting people to validate me. I mean, I'm coming down hard today for a reason, because I think we don't think enough about the impact when it comes to invitation, right? Right now, what am I disruptively inviting people to? Hopefully to think about things a little bit more, right? Maybe people think I'm inviting them to get angry, but what my choice of invitation right now is to think about the impact of how you do what you do, because it doesn't just impact you, it impacts others, right? People can say, oh, I just put that for this reason, but get honest with yourself. Why did you really put that up? Right? Well, I'm talking, this is the level I'm talking about. This is not that anybody else is going to be accountable to this, but you. Get honest. Like, do I post 50 times a day because I am so lonely in my life and I just need attention? And that's okay. I'm not judging it. I'm saying you're going to want to be honest and upfront with why you do what you do, why you're inviting people, because you won't know you and you won't know what's really bothering you and maybe where you need to feed yourself. And, I think about my mom's final conversations with me and how she shared that she had spent so much of her life creating and hermiting that she felt lonely. And how many times did she maybe know that but not pay attention to that? I don't know. I can't answer that question. But my whole piece is that we are in the driver's seat of our own lives. And if we don't start to get to know our reasoning for doing what we're doing and being who we're being, there is no point of reference that we can start saying, oh, that's working and this isn't. At the end of my life, I'm not going to get to that place that I want. I'm not going to get to the place of community and belongingness and feeling like I'm surrounded by a lot of people who know and love me, right? If I'm choosing each time to say, well, that's okay. I don't need others. I'm just here to create for the world, and not holding accountability to what we truly need ourselves, right? So we pay attention based on the actions that what is the real reason, right? I mean, you and I both do it in our work when we talk to clients and we say, okay, share with me the big vision. Where do you want to take this company? Where do you want to take this brand? Where do you want to take this culture of your company? Whatever, right? Whatever the focus is. And then we double down on the why. Why do you want
to tell me why.
Tell me why. Because it's really underneath those questions that the truth lies. I want a company that is profitable and it's doing good things. I love that kind of language because I'm like, what is good? Like, could you please define good for me? Like all of this is just, it's not telling me anything. I mean, it sounds wonderful, don't get me wrong, but it's not telling me anything. What does good mean to you? Like my biggest one lately is, what is define partnership for me? What is your definition? I had a friend yesterday, Mia Lamont, shout out to you, girlfriend. She wrote a great post about freedom and what it meant to her. Freedom means to me these things. What does freedom mean to you? And I just thought it was awesome. I told her, I said, one word, choice. Right? That's for me. But like when we ask, I mean, I had a great connection, some of these posts I'm seeing coming out too. I mean, you totally see what they're inviting people to, and I absolutely love it. She's in real estate. She's in luxury real estate. And this whole post was about affordable housing. and how there's currently the city of Raleigh has been taken to court because there was this plan for affordable housing, and then they gave in to the neighborhood, the wealthier people in the neighborhood,
Gotcha.
basically saying, we don't want this here because it's going to, affect us in ways we don't want. And now they're being taken to task for that, because it's like, this isn't just about certain people and being comfortable with what they want.
Correct.
This is about building a community that thrives.
Mm.
And there's all aspects that are needed within an environment and community. And so she was very neutral. She just stated the facts. And then she said, I would love to know your thoughts on affordable housing and when it comes to community impact. And, it's inviting people to really think about these things that are important, right? This is about us, how are we going to come together, and are there gaps? I hadn't thought about that. Maybe that isn't really fair. When we're just blinder on and reacting to what's good for us, or what we feel, or what we like, or what we don't like, or what, we're missing a lot of other pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Right.
Fortunately or unfortunately, right, that there are times, and I'm people's experiences, good or bad, in these times. We're talking about major things, be it elections, life, death. People's experiences, the way how they react. Some people react differently, right? So, you not taking that away from you. It's just thinking through it, because if you're angry or if you're too happy, you're euphoric. We your mind gets in a drunken state. Anger comes in, and you can say, if you're on the sad side, anger comes in. You write. That's what it says. Write a letter and simmer it. Let it simmer, and then you come back. If you can come back to that, what you've written, and say, no, that's a bit too harsh, is it? Then you're really thinking. You're getting into your atomic why. It's not having that knee jerk. But today I'm sitting down, Traci, and I say to myself, oh my goodness, everything's recorded. My entire life is recorded. Eavesdroppers, hey, you're on here. I see you. Please chime in. Let us know your thoughts. We're just here talking about elections, and then it's segueing into, how do we react when we come to a roadblock, when we come to hindrances, obstacles. But I'm sitting to myself here. I'm sitting and thinking, I'm being recorded. Every moment of my life, I'm being recorded. By whom? By myself. And do you know how we feel when we're being recorded? How you react, rather, when the camera's on you? Say you're at a program and you're there, you're slouching, and then when the person's panning, and when they're panning, and when they go, there's a return, right? So on that return, you're like, okay, let me set this up really nicely. And it pans back. So you're showing your best, you're putting your best foot forward. And I said to myself, the fact I am important to myself. Some people say you know yourself when you're alone, right? You do those things when you're alone. That's who you are. When you're alone, the things you do, that's who you are. So if I'm being recorded by this big old computer in this chunk of mass here, if I'm being recorded, how am I going to enjoy this playback? How am I going to see this playback? Because thank you. We're in this culture of get it. And some of these things, when posted on social media, or your friend or your parent shows you, hey, look what I saw, and you go, ooh, or yay. When you show your video to yourself, I don't care who you're showing your video to, but I'm saying to yourself, when you show your video, your playback, how are you reacting? Traci, I tell you, I did some playbacks a couple days ago in Alice, and the playback occurred right after I did whatever I did. It was words. It was words on the basketball court. I mean, we're down by 7. We come up and we tie the score, and they're following me, double files, bam, bam, bam. The ref's not doing it, so I turn around and I say, "Right, boop, boop, boop." And right after I said that, no, oh, jeez. After the game, I go to the ref. I said, "I apologize for my words. Really apologize for my words." The guys who were with me, I said, "Yeah." They're like, "No, man, there's basketball." And I said, "Nah, no, that's not basketball." I said, "I'm telling you, I'm sorry. Can you accept my apology or not?" They're like, "But man, you're cool." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." Because when I did the playback, but I was
That's beautiful.
gracious
That's
to
such a great, yeah,
myself.
yeah.
I was gracious to myself because after it happened, and it happened 2 times in 3 or 4 days. The first time I'm like, the second time I'm like, how can I forgive myself when I knew it? I'm like, I'm gonna forgive myself. I am going to forgive myself. How are we when we write these things, when we say these things in anger, when we say it in love, uh, as we are engaging people in their hurt, it's so important sometimes to just stay in neutral, to let the person, and I'm flipping slightly to this side, to let the person run the show. You don't run the show in that process. So I thought about, I'm being recorded because you know how we're so conscious when the camera, when the lens come on us, and we, okay, I think I'm gonna wear this shirt today. It's gonna look really nice on this here. But we're being recorded every second, Tracy.
Yeah, I love that so much. That's that accountability piece. I mean, that's such a great frame. I really think that's a great frame because people can understand that concept really well. And it's that idea of, it's kind of like when I oftentimes say, like, I live in closest proximity to me, so liking me as a neighbor is really important.
Oh.
Like, am I being the neighbor I would want? Like, my
Ooh.
relationship with me is most important because I live closest to me. um but that we're not perfect. I just had this I mean, on the flip side of what I just said earlier, I had a
Uh-huh.
conversation last week with a client who is obviously being given an up leveling lesson, is what I consider it. And
Mm.
that is it's this concept of unconditional love. And I actually found this great, and I can try to find it when I turn this over to you and you're talking, and I can try to put in the chat or the
Definitely.
comments. But it was a Forbes article, I think. It was either a Forbes or a Harvard Business Review article, but it was about, is there room for unconditional love in business? Great article.
Mm.
And the conversation that came up from what the client was sharing with me was, I said, I feel like you're being invited to this lesson of how to meet this person who she was, having this issue with that week, to meet them in a space of unconditional love. And what does it mean to be
Mm.
unconditional? And one of the questions is, do you feel you were interacting with her at the age she is now? And she says, what do you mean? I said, well, do you feel like when she acted the way she did that made you really angry, do you feel that she was her current age?
Ooh.
And she was like, oh, that's a good question. She said, have a place at work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it,
And
right?
I think so. I can't read that
Okay.
small, but I think so. I think that's the typo.
Okay.
But she's like, actually, I think I was engaging with her 5-year-old self. I said, okay, great. Said, so based on that, and let's think about the developmental stage of a 5-year-old. Okay, can we expect a 5-year-old to act as we would a 45-year-old? No. Right? Again, we can expect a 45-year-old who's learned how to drive to be able to get in a car and drive. But we try that with a 5-year-old. I mean, we don't have the same expectations because of the developmental stage. So I said, so if you feel like you were actually engaging with her 5-year-old self, then would that shift your expectations? And she says, oh, totally. And I said, and what else do you notice when you see her through that lens as her being 5? Like, aspect of her 5-year-old self do you think you're engaging with? She's like, oh, the temper tantrum 5-year-old, the 5-year-old in a temper tantrum. I said, okay, well, so have you ever been with a child who's 5 or around there in a temper tantrum actively? Oh, yeah. Okay, so how do you manage that? Right. So we're basically unpacking this whole thing. And what came of it was this ability for her to have a deep sense of compassion, which is really what we're going for, right? We're going for that because that's the entrance to unconditional love. The door to unconditional love is compassion. And if we can find that door, if we can find that compassion within ourselves, we can meet people. When we talk about meeting people where they are, we're imperfect humans. We're always going to be in versions of ourselves that may or may not be convenient. Let's put it that way. And so meeting people where they are is literally that. Trying to and we have all of the guidance we need for that. We have head brains, heart brains, gut brains, and intuition that give us the ability. When I asked her that question, where do you think the intelligence was coming from? What age do you think you were engaging with? Was that coming from her head brain, heart brain, gut brain, or intuition? Wow. Right?
Wow.
And so it's asking those questions that allow us to pull up the data that we actually are picking up, that we're not necessarily conscious we're picking up, that we can utilize to navigate the situation differently. Because at the end of it, there was a little bit of that resistance. She's like, yeah, but the boundaries are important. And we hired this person to do this job and she can't, I'm not there to manage her and pay her for, when she's in. And I'm like, I get all that. And that gets to be data that gets to be factored into how you want to approach this. I'm just going to put on the table an opportunity to have a heart to heart. And in that heart to heart, communicate the boundaries. Communicate the expectations, communicate that leadership perspective that you feel you're both responsible for and want to be accountable to, and try to meet her where she is at the same time. This is the challenge. And again, you wouldn't be given this opportunity if you weren't ready for it. That's just how life works. But you can choose not to accept the challenge. You can choose to let the lesson ride, and it'll come back around at a different date, different time, right? That's up to you. You don't have to meet the lesson. I just want to point out that it's being offered, right? The opportunity, which says two things. One, you're ready. You don't have to choose to be ready, but the lesson wouldn't be here if you as a leader hadn't developed to a certain point.
Correct.
Right? Correct. It wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be in your, in your potential opportunity. And you have free will. You can choose to do it the next time. Okay?
Traci, how many, and we're about to go into what happened last show. Remember where I became the guinea pig, and Traci, listen to me. Do you know how many times I had to tell this person? I'm just role playing here in this thing. First and foremost, I must say I loved, oh my goodness, and truly the way how if I can keep that in my mind every single time, I will win. Without me putting myself in front of it, I'm going to win every time. If I engage someone or somebody is engaging me, and I can look through the lens that you stated just now, to know what age is this person engaging me, because it's in Liberia to say when a fly bites you, are you going to go and bite the fly? That's similar to this. If the person's a 5-year-old coming through a 5-year-old body now, and you mindset rather, and then you get down to that 5-year-old, and afterwards you're in the muddy waters, and don't fight a pig in mud, right? He loves it. But I love how you framed it. But Traci, how many times in the heat of the moment when somebody comes to me with that, and I'm gonna go 5-year-old, so they come down 8-year-old. Don't have the time to keep thinking that. No, Tracy, and sometimes, trust me, as much as there's that part of the flesh that just wants to be satisfied with the comeback. You know,
Mhm. Then
there's that
you
part of you
become the
where you're
5-year-old
like, oh yeah, 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 yeah.
or the
And yet,
10-year-old.
you know what it looks like? You know what it looks like? It looks like this. Somebody who you rather, you're in the room with me, and you're saying, Wulwyn, well, the person is acting that way, and you're in the room saying, Wulwyn, um, don't react to that in that way. That person is coming. I was like, here's how it comes up. Tracy, I don't care. I don't care what age they're coming through. Right now, the gloves are on. I'm going in for it. And I know what I'm doing right now because you're pissed, right? You're upset. So you have, and now you're telling the wall, and now you're acting like a 5-year-old. Yeah, I'm gonna. So
There's lesson in
how
that.
can I? True, but how can I in those moments, like what I stated to you earlier, I said the pressure's on me. The guys are fouling me. They are hitting me there, and the ref isn't calling. And I get out of my usual self, and I turn into this person who I hate, and I just go. "Boop, boop, 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 boop." How how can I stay, and I love my word equanimity. Whatever happens, I keep on the same line and I don't change. How can I? But is that even human?
Mhm. Yeah,
How can I
I mean, that's
stay?
such
How
a
can I
great
stay?
question. We get better at it the more we're
There
able
you
to
go.
engage with that real self, that authentic self, that neutral, like higher self, right? The essence of us. The more we're able to engage in critical times with that part of ourselves, the better we get at it. Like I keep thinking, I think I told the story here about what happened when my brother and I were going initially through going through my mom's right after my mom passed away, and we were at her house, and
Mhm.
emotions were high. I mean, we were both grieving actively. I mean, it had only been a couple weeks since she passed, and my brother had some other stuff that he had been holding on to within our relationship. That because that emotionality
Correct.
kicked that to the surface. After a day of us both, I had just been through my mom's closet and given away all her clothes. I mean, it was a really emotional day. And at the very end of it, he decided to bring this stuff up in a very what felt like a big attack. And I know that it might not have been, but it just was this like and you and you and you and you and you, right, like kind of thing. And so it's kind of one of those moments where the first thing we think of is defend ourselves. Like what? Like first of all, I wasn't expecting it. Second of all, I was exhausted emotionally in every other way.
Mm.
But third of all, it's just that shock of like, you're being shot at, where it feels like you're being shot at.
The
But
nerve.
because I've done the work that I've done, that's
Uh-huh.
where we catch ourselves, right?
Correct.
And this is the unconditional loving part. Now, would it
Mm.
have been would it have been harder if it wasn't my brother or somebody I loved dearly? Yes. But God lets me practice with the thing, it's like let's go to the next level of difficulty, right?
Oh, I
The
love
fact
it.
that it was somebody I loved so much that I knew was hurting so much just as I,
Mm.
and that
Mm.
that I think I was able to catch myself in that, defensive like initial like, well, what about you? Blah blah blah
Mhm.
blah blah. Like
Yeah.
you think
Yeah.
I did it? Well, you did. It just I was able to stop, and all I
Yeah.
did was just pause. I just hit pause. It was like
Mm.
you just don't do anything. Don't react positively, negative. Just hit pause. And when
Mm.
we do that, and what I found in my situation was my ability to then work on backing the truck up. Like what can I? It's that protection isn't always about defensive hitting back. Protection can be about removing ourselves from
Mm.
feeling like we need to be responsible for that other person's emotionality. And that pause allowed me to kind of take, that's what taking a step back perspective is, taking a
Yeah.
step back and not being in it, right? Not being hijacked by the moment or the pressure or the emotionality, but being able to kind of step back and assess it from a
Mm.
wider angle perspective. And so in that moment, I could feel his pain. I could also realize it wasn't mine. I could also listen to his words and realize that the things that he was saying didn't really align with how I knew I was as a
Mm.
person. So I think knowing ourselves is also a big component of this.
Yeah.
And I don't mean knowing
Yeah.
myself in like only my good qualities. Like I am one of the first people who is more than willing to look at the shadow aspects of who and how I am. Because again, I look at it as growth. I mean, have I always been like that in my life? Oh heck no.
No.
I've been one of the most pushy, defensive, angry. Like I've been all the things, and that's how I can speak from those places. You know,
Mm.
and I think
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it is accepting. Like you talk about grace. First, we have to have the grace, compassion, acceptance for ourselves, and that's what you were talking about earlier. Like giving
Yeah.
yourself that grace, giving yourself that compassion, giving yourself that love. Because as we practice that and really get good at it with
Yeah.
ourselves. This isn't letting ourselves off the hook. That's not what this is. This is
Yeah.
really looking at ourselves and diffusing the judgments
Mm.
so that we can have the growth. Right? Judgment is like like so if a kid's trying to grow and you put like 100-pound weight on them and you're pushing them down, like it will stunt their growth. Like they will not be able to grow.
Mm.
They will not be able to, sprout. Or you do the same thing if you want to use a different analogy with a plant, right? You put something on the plant, you put a brick on the plant, it can't grow. So
Mm.
that's what happens. If we want to grow and develop and better ourselves, we have to be willing to take the judgment off. The judgment is like the brick,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
right?
I like
And
that. I like.
so learning how to do that is important to these moments, because in that moment, do you know what's happening? We're not really defending ourselves against that person who's attacking us.
Mm.
We're defending ourselves against ourselves, because
Yeah.
that person's voice is the voice that we have judging ourselves. And so if that judgment comes at us and we don't have, there's a disconnection between those voices. We have a kind, compassionate, understanding voice within ourselves for ourselves. We're going to first of all be able to have that with others more effectively if we have it with ourselves.
Mm.
But we also won't take on that voice. That voice won't sync up, and then we're fighting against ourselves, not that person, right? If there's not that sync up, then there's nothing to fight against. We can
Mm.
recognize that that person is coming from a hurt place within them that they're projecting, because that's what we do. We use one another as projectors, right? And we're mirrors, and we're trying to work this stuff out within ourselves with one another. So when we have that separatism, we can know what's ours and what isn't, and we can be more supportive not only of ourselves but of others, right? And we can see that also. That perspective step back allows us to see ourselves in that. I've been there too.
Mm.
I've been
Mm.
angry and defensive too. And then that allows us to find that door of compassion, so we can hold unconditional love in that space.
And all I'm hearing you is, and you said, the more we practice it, the more we engage. Um, it's about training, and I'm thinking about the military where they simulate, uh, war. And so when they really get in it, they don't panic. It's something that I think we can simulate in our minds that someone is attacking us and doing, whatever they're doing, and because your mind really doesn't know when it's happening for real or when it's happening for fake per se. Because if you bring it to your mind and present it to frame it, you will quickly get angry and do whatever you have to do with it. So I think framing it and practicing with ourselves, that's a good thing. I do this a couple of times in different aspects, but never in when someone, I did it in someone cussing and hitting, but I'm protecting myself also. But that's a good one. As you were speaking, Jeff came on and said, I know you guys practice this, and it's important to let people say how they feel, so they can release the feeling and move on.
A
I
hundred
mean,
percent. That's such a good
you
point.
know, it
That's
is a
another
good
thing
point.
that's going on. We can legitimately, because if we're being quiet, but we have a seething anger there, that
Yes.
energy is not going to be open to really holding space, is kind of what he's saying. Is when we want to hold space for someone to have a moment, right, to
Mhm.
release their stuff, that needs to be open an open energy moment, right? And if we're back there just like holding our tongue but seething, like that's not, we're
Yeah.
not holding space at that point. Well, we're holding space for something different, but we're not holding space for that person. So, you know, it needs to be legitimate.
Yeah.
And we are coming into a time where we can't fake it. That whole fake it till you make it thing is not going to land. And
Yeah.
people are developing their ability to feel what feels safe, who feels safe, who's really holding space effectively, and who isn't. We're learning that more and more. We're upping our internal guidance abilities as human beings. We're up leveling in that way. I'm seeing it, in, especially in the younger generations. Oh my God, we talk about them being natives to the technology. They're natives to this stuff too. The reason we see these snowflakes is because they are sensitive. They're more sensitive to the data points, but they haven't learned how to use them yet because the generations before them have just blocked them, right? They've just blocked those data points. And so they're not teaching these younger generations what to do with all of this sensitivity of data that they're holding. So, you know, there is this ability. I mean, when I start talking to younger generations about this stuff, they get it. It's like finally they have a language that feels that feels native to them. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Why I'm, you know, and so it allows them to not feel foreign to this world, you know, because they do have this, and all they know is how they feel and what they're sensing, but they don't know what to do with it. So I think that this is, you know, they're going to be looking more and more for places and spaces and people that can hold space, right? They try to do it. I see it how they do it with one another when they get together, not on their technology. They've actually are face to face with one another. I mean, it's amazing how well adapted to this way of being they actually innately are.
Yeah. You know, Jeff, as you say this, I'm even thinking on what we started with, where individuals now are going online and writing whatever they're saying. It's sometimes this is a form of release, right? And I being the person who is graduated, meaning at a mindset where I know the person is maybe acting like a 5-year-old, I have to be gracious to them and not put them in a box and say, you're having your temple tantrum here, and I really can't deal with you. Like I see friends saying, I cannot, the fact that you're on that side, you're Republican, or because you're a Democrat, I cannot deal with you anymore. And I'm saying to myself, I love to eat, let me see, pasta. You love to eat hamburgers. Is it because your choice of hamburgers, uh, I'm gonna start telling you, because you can't see the way I see it from my perspective, I'm shutting you down? No, I don't think that's how we go. Traci, we have 5 more minutes here. This has been, I was excited, and my excitement is still here. If you can't see it, I'm really am excited about this show. Truly appreciate how, the conversations we have are relevant. And I'm not, if it was irrelevant, I'll tell you, Traci, we're talking some irrelevant stuff here. And I'll be true to to myself. They're relevant, especially when we're talking earlier, and you talked about, when the going gets tough gets going, it relates directly to what occurred to me, what happened to me in the past week or two, where when I saw these hindrances here in Liberia, and I'm going to myself, man, I got to get in the plane and go back. Go back where? No, because in America, the same thing's going to happen. In wherever state you are, it's going to happen. And just I'm getting these I get these things from this show. I get enlightened, if I may use that word. I get enlightened from this show in the moment, because it's happening to me. It's happening to me, and I wish individuals who are watching, hashtag replay, whenever you're engaging in this, open your minds as you are listening to see how you can relate. Because I know most times when we're in here, we do the practical and say, hey, here's a way how you get over it. here's a way how to give these options for it. So Traci, take us away. We got roughly what, 2 minutes, and then I'll come back with the last thing I have to say.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it's relevant because our intention, I mean, we always get on together before we go live, and our intention is to speak what is most relevant, right? So we open ourselves up to that relevancy. So I think that that's, you know, that's why we find that at least it resonates with us, that it feels relevant. And we both look at a wide swath of things when we look into the world. We don't just look, you know, like we're both kind of that visionary. Let's look at the why, you know, what's going on collectively. And two, you know, I started off by challenging people to know themselves and to think about what they're inviting people to. And then I purposely integrated that piece of how can we actually legitimately be more, you know, accountable to ourselves. We have to start by building these concepts of ourselves internally, because otherwise we can't hold a 5-year-old accountable to something they developmentally haven't been through yet. Just as we can't expect ourselves to be better people if we haven't learned to build ourselves internally in this way yet. So again, you know, yes, some people go online and just it's to vent, but what if everybody on there is 5-year-olds and there's nobody who's developed beyond that? Like if you just had, it would be like Lord of the Flies. If you ever read that book in school, you know, if we just think, well, I'm just there venting and I'm just getting it out. And you said it's good to get it out. It's like, yes, but then there needs to be accountability to that next level. Like, yes, there's the importance to feel what you're feeling. But if you always use social media and everybody uses it for that same thing to just bleh, and they don't want to ever take responsibility or grow beyond that, can you see what I'm saying? Right. Yep. So that's the invitation is that I'm not saying you never can. And you, quite frankly, do what you want. But if you want to have a different experience in life and you want to feel more fulfilled and growth driven and all of these things that I'm assuming you want if you're even on this channel listening to us, because that's what Wulwyn and I are both about, then I'm inviting you to consider these things, because that's precisely why it was delivered that way. Is, you know, first we need to really think about what we're doing, and then, you know, there's that look of, you know, how can we bring that compassion and that deeper understanding of how these things factor in and how we get to that next level where we can hold ourselves accountable that way.
Whoa, Traci. Hey, it's a wrap up of EP19. You know you've been pre-recorded. You know you've been recorded by yourself. And November 6th, happy birthday in heaven, Daddy. Hope all is well there. Don't send me no messages. Yeah. Traci,
happy birthday to my nephew. I'm going to say happy birthday to my nephew today too. My brother's
cool.
son it's his birthday as well. So happy birthday, James, wherever you are. We love you, and we hope you're having a good day. And thanks for everybody who joined us today and or is joining us on replay. We appreciate you being here.
Take care. Bye-bye.